Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sue.
Welcome, Gary.
Cut that off a little bit abruptly. So welcome, everybody. Would somebody like to just light the chalice for me? So we welcome each other with warmth and grace. The chalice reminds us that what shines within connects us all. We fondly give ourselves in this our sacred time together. And we give thanks to the opportunity to be curious and to be open to other ideas. Our diversity in mind and body is our strength within our humanity. And we also give thanks for what we share in the unity through our worship together. So today is all about the time of our life. Time being the appropriate word here, and how we perceive it, what it is, and how we can use it. So I'm going to delve a little bit more into that. So we'll have a little bit of science, nice and easy, not too much, a few facts and figures, but it should be okay. But first of all, we go straight into a hymn. So this is 43, Universal Spirit. I can't read So the Olympics has just ended. So that's represents people spending years or most of their lives to get an opportunity to win a medal. That is time and energy spent towards a goal of becoming something greater and better. A bit like we all do in everyday life. We spend our time in different pursuits, trying to fulfill our dreams, or some people just spend their time just trying to get by and live each day the best they can. We all have a choice on how we spend our time, and we ourselves can decide whether we have made the best use of it or not. So I'm going to read a motivational story now. I don't know who the author is. I heard this many years ago and I couldn't find anybody's name to put to it, so I'll just read it. Imagine there is a bank that credits your account each morning with £86,400. It carries over no balance from day to day. Every evening deletes whatever part of the balance you fail to use during the day. What would you do? Draw out every penny, of course. Each of us has such a bank. Its name is time. Every morning it credits you with 86,400 seconds. Every night it writes it off as lost, whatever of this you have failed to invest to good purpose. It carries over no balance, it allows no overdraft. Each day it opens a new account for you, and each night it burns the remains of the day. And if you fail to use the day's deposits, the loss is yours. So there's no going back. There's no drawing against the tomorrow. You must live in the present on today's deposits. Invest it so as to get from it the utmost in health, happiness, and success. The clock is running. Make the most of it today. To realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who has failed his final exam. To realize the value of 1 month, ask a parent of a premature baby. To realize the value of 1 week, ask the editor of a weekly newspaper. To realize the value of 1 day, ask a daily wage labourer who has a large family to feed. To realize the value of 1 hour, ask lovers who are waiting to meet. To realize the value of 1 minute, ask a person who has missed the train, the bus, or a plane. And to realize the value of 1 second, ask a person who has survived an accident. And to realize the value of 1 millisecond, ask a person who has won the silver medal at the Olympics. Treasure every moment that you have, and treasure it more because you shared it with someone special. Special enough to spend your time. And remember that time waits for no one. So I quite like that. I thought it apt for today. So sometimes it is good to have some time alone to reevaluate or to recuperate. But ultimately, it is good to share our time with someone else. This gives us hope and enthusiasm to live and love each other in a different way for the sake of humanity. So a little quote here from Dale Carnegie. Remember, today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. It's like a cycle, isn't it? You spend your time worrying about what's happening tomorrow, and when tomorrow comes, you spend your time then worrying about the next day, and yet that day is behind you. It's quite a thought, an idea to live in the present. So, keeping that in mind, we go on to our next hymn, which is The Source of All Being. So the time of our life. When I was a young lad, just first starting out in work, I had lots of time. Because the type of work I did was I used to press a button. I used to work on a machine and I used to have to wait for that to finish. So I'd have this cycle of this machine and then I used to press a button every time it finished. So that could be 3 minutes, could be 6 minutes, could be 10 minutes, could be any period of time. And through that, I got bored, obviously. Yeah, just stood waiting for this machine to finish. It's an extremely boring thing to do. So I used to get little books and what have you. And when I'd read all the books and newspapers, I started to read in the parameter list of the machine, which something that somebody never reads, you know. Instructions on how to use a machine. You know, you just don't read them things. It's a man thing maybe, but you know. So I used to get that bored and I used to read all these different things. And then I used to get to thinking about time, or what is time? So I had to think about all these deep questions of life, because I had time on my hands, obviously. And so I think, oh, well, how does that work? And then I got to think about light and, you know, how light travels over time. I thought, well, if I was in some distance away and I had a telescope and I could see through a window into a room to see somebody there, that light is being projected and it comes to my eyes and I'm seeing it. So there's a distance there over time. And but that goes off in every direction. So people from a different angle from me will see it from a slightly different perspective. But light travels and that image travels. That image is traveling. So I get to thinking, well, that image, if you take image after image, it's almost like a flip book. You know, these old-fashioned flip books. You have a drawing and then you have the next bit and it slowly moves. So it's still. But when you flip it, it has motion and it takes a life. So I'm thinking, no, this is what I'm thinking, you know, about life and time and light. And this is before, you know, the internet, so you could just quickly Google it or whatever. But you get a lot of this now in science, and they'll describe it in similar ways. And I thought, oh, I mustn't have been doing too bad, you know. But it was always a fascination with me, and I used to collect timepieces. So Teresa used to get sick of me collecting these timepieces. So I'd have little pocket watches I collected every 2 weeks. And I used to like to see them go, so I'd take out the plastic strip and then a bit ticking away. And then I'd put them in my coffee table and in my thing that I had on the wall. And then at night time you'd hear this time.
When you've got 100 of them, it's really
And of course I'd have to have the mantelpiece clock. And of course I had a grandfather clock in the corner of the room. Boing! So all this noise going on while you're trying to watch TV. And Teresa, you know, had many blessings when the batteries run out. So give us a bit of peace and quiet. But I always had a fascination with time. Time was always something which I was interested in. So it got me thinking a lot of how we perceive time. There was an experiment once where they strapped somebody into a catapult and they had a watch and they set it so it was blinking at a rate which is faster than they could actually see. And then they catapulted them in the air and they was to look at this watch. And they found with the adrenaline and everything else, they could actually read the time on the watch. And that's because the synapses and everything in the brain sort of speeds up. And so you know how it is when you're in an accident and time starts to go slowly and all your life goes through your mind. You know, time is a relative thing. So it's an interesting experiment. So I researched time. Well, what is time? So I have a few things here. Time is a continued sequence of existence and events that occur in an apparently irreversible succession from the past through the present and into the future. That's one definition. It is a component quality of various measurements used to sequence events, to compare the duration of events or in the intervals between them, and to quantify rates of change of quantities in material reality or in the conscious experience. Yeah, did you get all that? Time is often referred to as the fourth dimension, along with 3 spatial dimensions. So there's 3 facts of or relative ideas of what time is. So who came up with the idea of time? What is time? So I don't know if anybody knows anything about this. No, probably not. So it's older than you think. So the ancient Sumerians who lived in Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago, in an area that is now Iraq, are credited with inventing time by dividing the day and night into 12-hour periods. Hours into 60 minutes and minutes into seconds. The division is known as a sexagesimal system, which is also fits neatly into dividing a circle into 60 parts. And the Sumerians used this system to create shadow clocks and obelisks that divided the day into equal parts by measuring the division of a circle. So some of this we'll learn at school, probably not the ancient Sumerians. They're very interesting. Why do we need time so long ago? You know, obviously we needed a bit of order to our day, and things needed to be done on time. You know, building pyramids or something. You know, get the slaves going, or whatever. But time, as I say, is all relative. So if you think of time on a different planet, if we could go to a different planet. So a day on Jupiter is about 10 hours long, which is the shortest day in our solar system. This is because Jupiter rotates or spins faster than any other planet, taking only 10 hours to complete one rotation, while Earth takes 24 hours. So you can imagine that. You work 8 hours a day, you've only got 2 hours to sleep. Or our perception of it would be totally different, and we would have to change our lifestyle to compensate for that. But, you know, it's only relative. The 24 hours or the 12-hour system is only relative to where we are right now on this planet. And if you could travel to other planets, and maybe one day we will, it would be a total different idea, a different thing. So Venus has the longest day of any planet in our solar system, taking 243 Earth days to rotate once in its axis. Imagine the work days on there. 243 days. You'd be begging for some downtime, wouldn't you? Like January, yeah. So it's all, you know, different perspective, and depending where you are and how you view it. So it gets a bit intriguing, doesn't it, when you start thinking about time and how we hold ourselves to it every second of the day, every minute, every hour. So light travels at 300,000 kilometers, kilometers per second, or 186 miles per second for those with old units. It's pretty fast. So if you imagine that the sun is that far away, that light travel takes 8 minutes to reach us. So if anything was to happen in the sun, the big flare or whatever, and we was monitoring that, that would take 8 minutes before we would know that there was anything actually happening. That's quite interesting, So something happens and we're not seeing it instantly. It's only because we're here, we see things instantly because we're only a certain distance away. So if you think of a star way off in the galaxy, it's effectively looking back in time, because that could take thousands of years before we actually get that image back to where we are now. So whatever happens there, we're sort of looking in its past. And the same if people was occupying that planet in that system, they look to our planet and think, you know, we're back in the Stone Age. So you're effectively looking back in time. Again, time is relative, so we're not seeing that instant, you know, what's happening this present moment. We're looking, you know, back in time. So it's an interesting concept, and it's all to do with, you know, that's one spin of the planet takes 24 hours. An interesting fact: you are now actually moving at 1,000 miles an hour, because that's, you know, where we are on the surface of the planet, and it's rotating. I mean, it's rotating. It's 1,000 miles an hour. You imagine a fly in the car flying about, and you're travelling at 70 miles an hour, and it's like flying about, not a problem. You open the window, and thump, it suddenly hits 70 miles an hour, and off it goes. It suddenly knows what 70 miles an hour is. So if a cloud had opened in the sky, we go out, we'd suddenly know what 1,000 miles an hour would be like. These things I think about, you see. So yeah, distance is all relative to how we perceive ourselves and time. So here's another fact. Quantum entanglement is a quantum effect that's not affected by distance. You know, so something here and something the other side of the universe is not affected by that distance. It's a phenomenon that describes how two or more particles can be linked together, even if they are separated by billions of light years. The particle state remains the same, even though a change is induced in one, it will affect the other. So that time and distance is no meaning in quantum entanglement. So this is a science, and this is forever developing and getting closer to, you know, what we know as our truth. So they're very interesting, isn't it? You know, we always think if we was to throw a ball, it'd take time for somebody else to reach it. But, you know, quantum entanglement, boom, straight away, it's instant, it happens. So very, very interesting. That idea, I find that very interesting, and how we might observe how things work. As you get down to the quantum level, it's totally different. And science is starting to, you know, unravel this for us. And I think it's all got a good way to go before we fully understand that. So I'm going to give you a quick Bible reading now. It's from Revelations 22:13. So God declares, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end." So that would stay, you know, in that declaration that time is finite. If God was beginning, is at the end. So there's a length of time in which, you know, this is us, but He's outside of that. And I like to believe that the Spirit that is within us has an element of that. So we are basically outside of time, although we experience it. That's my personal belief or thought process. Yeah, it's something that fits in with me or resonates with me at the moment. So a bit more science, I'm afraid, to try and give you a good idea of how all this works. So the double slit experiment is a physics experiment and demonstrates how particles and waves can exhibit both behaviours, the two different states of being a wave or being a particle. The experiment involves passing waves through two narrow slits and observing the resulting pattern on the screen. And the pattern is called an interference pattern, and it can be seen with all types of waves, including light, water and sound. Interesting. According to physics, and quantum particles can change their behavior when observed, a phenomenon known as the observer effect. The double slit experiment is a famous physics experiment that demonstrates this effect. So it's all potential, a wave that's just moving, until we observe it, and then it becomes something solid, something we can grab hold of. I'll go more into that in a second. So there it is. Before observation, it's a wave, spreads out over space and time. And at the time of observation, particle localized, and it's a localized space-time event. So if particles react differently when observed, then you could say that particles are conscious, because they only change from a wave to a particle when they are being observed. So that's conscious action. Whether they are photons, electrons, or atoms, as they are observed, they react differently as detailed in the experiment. It's very interesting. What does that mean? So I've been reading a lot, watching a lot of Billy Carson, and he says everything in existence, everything exists first as a wave of potential before a reality is collapsed into existence. So we'll explore this a little bit. Everything starts with a thought before anything can manifest. So for instance, if we think, I'd like a chair. Well, first of all, this chair here started with a thought. Well, how am I going to make that? What materials am I going to use? What method am I going to use to put it together? So you draw a plan out. And then after you've drawn that plan out, you get some machinery or some tools, and then you start putting it together. And then before you know it, you've got a chair. So that starts out with a thought, ends up with a physical object. So this wave might have started out as a thought, something that you cannot grab hold of, something intangible almost. And it manifests in a series of events, and eventually it becomes a physical item. And you could say everything starts with like that. Nothing that's created doesn't start out first with a thought. I'm going to do this, and then you go and do it. But what about everything else? What about mountains and trees? So we often think, well, God made that, or source, a central source made that, or all sorts of ideas. If you look at theology and scriptures and different kinds, all come up with a different idea of how that can be. I don't know if you've heard of the law of manifestation. This is something which is quite interesting. So the idea is you put something out there, a thought, out to the universe, and then everything conspires to bring it to you. So if you think, one thing I used to do, I'll be working till I die, I'll never afford to retire, well, that's probably what I would do. Or if I change that concept like I did, I'm going to retire at 55, then that then becomes your reality. And I did. I was semi-retired, I suppose. I think I work more hours now than I did when I was working full-time. But that's besides the point. Whatever you think about is drawn to you. So if you think negative thoughts, you're drawing negative thoughts. If you think happy thoughts, you're drawing happiness. Peaceful thoughts, you bring in peace. And if you look back into your life, if I look back in my life, that's how things seem to have worked. So this law of manifestation seems to, attract everything that I seem to be focusing on. And I look back into my life, and this is how I perceive it. Many people might have other ideas, but that's how I like to think about it. So now I'm going to demonstrate this a little bit. How does this work? So I'm gonna do this by doing my favourite medium, which is a card trick. I hope you don't mind to be entertained for a little bit. So I've got some oversized cards here. Now I'm going to tell you a story. I'll avoid all these wires. So for this, I need somebody to take this back. Judith, if you would mind doing this.
What do you want me to do?
You hold your hands out like that. So we're going to put an idea out there. We're going to put an idea of, into the universe or whatever. And we're gonna make a decision. So Judith, what I want you to do is, let's set the scenario first. So there's a woman called Jane. We'll call her Jane, for instance, and she is thinking, I ain't got a job, and I need to do something which I'm good at. So what am I good at? So one day she thinks, right, what am I good at? What am I good at? I'm really good at eating cake. I wonder if there's a job that would be, eating cake. And, right, there's got to be more than that. So, so she thinks, well, what's my favourite cake? Red velvet cake. I'm really good at eating red velvet cake. Now, if there was a job eating red velvet cake, then I'm that person. So anyway, she thinks nothing more of it, and away it goes. So she set that intention, and all of a sudden, it's in there. It's out there in the cosmos. So we're going to make a decision now. So I've got here, it's going to represent a clock. So I want you to pick a number of cards on top of there, and if no, you put your hands out, and if you just count them out, anywhere between 1 and 12, because we're using a 12-hour system here. And I won't look, just count out just a number of cards between 1 and 12 into Noel's hand. Now this is all about time, so I'm gonna do a clock here. And so this decision we're going to make is all about things working to our benefit and our opportunities that come in life. Have you done? I'll just take the full pack here, and you keep hold of them for a second. We'll do the big reveal in a sec. So I'm gonna try and stick these on here. I'm going to make a clock face. Just bear with me a second while I get this done, and hopefully I did this once and the whole thing just came falling down. That's a good beauty about doing tricks. They're a bit unreliable, so it could all go wrong. We've put the intention out there, so hopefully all will go well. Right, we've got a clock face now. So I'm going to write on here what needs to happen for this. This is the universe now creating something. So just to make it look like I've not made it up, I'm going to pass this to somebody else. So you can keep hold of that for a second. So anyway, Jane goes. She has to sign on because she's not got a job, and so she's got to take the bus into town. So she takes the bus, and after a few stops, it stops to let people on, and this other woman comes on, She comes on, all nice flowy dress and very smart. And she comes and sits next to Jane. And she's all very chatty and says, my car broke down, I have to take the bus. And I've got a very important meeting today. And Jane's going, yeah, whatever. And I've got people coming from all over the world and all going to meet. And I've just got this really big problem. You see, we make cakes. Cakes, so Jane is now listening, she's now interested. You make cakes, make cakes. And our recipe is perfect here. But the rest of the world, they just can't make the same recipe, and it's not constant, the quality is not good. What type of cake do you make, says Jane. The woman says, well, I make red velvet cake, we make all kinds of different. Well, it's the same red velvet cake, but it's different in every location, when really it should be the same. Jane's eyes are now lit up. Red velvet cake, yeah. If only we could have somebody who could go around all these places and make sure that the quality of this cake is the same. I can do that, me, I can do that, says Jane. Couldn't believe a look that this woman comes on at this time and needs somebody to taste red velvet cake in all these different locations all around the world. So she hands a card to Jane and says, look, I want you to be here at this time, and I'll have everybody there, and we can discuss this further. And she gets to her next stop, off she gets. Jane couldn't believe her look. So she goes to this interview at this particular time. So now we're going to find out, well, what time was that? So I'm going to take these cards from Noel. So how many cards did you draw? How many cards did you? Five. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. So it's 5 o'clock. So she had this interview at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. Red velvet. Coincidence? So we've got this time. We go for this interview. Well, what did I actually write down? What was conspiring to bring all this together at this particular time? They could have got there on the bus at any time. There was this time where these two people met, so she could find the job of her dreams. So if you just have a quick read of that, I'll read it out, but just so that you know that I'm reading the same thing.
You will pick a red card.
No, he's reading
Oh, right,
out.
okay.
No, you can read it, it's fine. Yeah, you will pick a red card. Now, in brackets I put red velvet cake. Red card. Now, you might look at that and think, well, it's a bit of a coincidence, There's 26 black cards and 26 red cards in the pack, so it's a 50-50 chance. Coincidence. Yeah, well, we often get these opportunities in life and we put it down to coincidence. But, what are the odds of the next card being black? Well, in this case, it's a 50-50 chance, and there we go. It could have gone either way. But what if you look at the next one? Well, the odds of that now gets slimmer, that you would have chosen 5 cards, 5 o'clock on this clock. But, but as we look at each one of these, you get to think, well, the odds are getting slimmer and slimmer, aren't they? Hang on a minute. All these cards are black cards. So there's only one opportunity that you would have had to take them 5 cards or choose, or 5 o'clock as being the thing which determines the rest of your life. So there's the entertainment part. Hope you like that. But we are always faced with opportunities, and we put out there you know, the ideas of what we would like or what would make our life better, and opportunities come our way and we often pass them by, and then things happen and we put it down to chance, opportunity. But is it? I'm not going to tell you one way or another. I'm just saying what's happened to me. So if I think back into my life and what's happened, when I was on that machine pressing that button, I never thought that there was anything more for me than that. And but I did used to think, well, what if I could do this next stage? What if I could set this machine or program this machine? And opportunity came, and I took it. And the next thing I knew, I was doing that. And again, I thought, what if there was a job that you could just program these full time? You know, I'd be in an office, I'd be away from all this dirt and grime. And then this job appeared, and I was doing that for a few years. And every job I've got, I've not gone out to try and go to college specifically. I've not had that as a goal. These things have come. And many years ago, there was one incident, there's many, but there's one particular instance when we didn't have a lot of money. And I thought, I've got no money, but the kids need new school clothes. They wear them out, they grow out of them. Next day I goes into work, this guy comes in with a bag of clothes. My daughter's growing out of these. Can you do anything with them? I'm like, oh yeah, I can do something with that. It answered my prayers. And things like this happened all the time. It could be coincidence. I like to think there's no such thing as coincidence. But that's my personal belief. And so things like this happened, and I look back over my life and I think things like this has happened so many times that, you know, there must be something more to it. So it brings us to the science, and, you know, well, how do things work? And science is becoming more and more aware of how things work. You go down to the quantum level, and particles are the same no matter what they end up to be. They just resonate at a different frequency. So that chair might resonate, and we see it as a chair, we can hold it as a chair, but down to its finest particle, down at the quantum level, it's no different to the particles that's in our body. And you can't differentiate between them. So science has got to a stumbling block. Well, how do they develop into being different items or different things? Well, they daren't say it, but, you know, consciousness, or some scientists are bringing that into it, but they'll get more and more clear as to how that works probably in the future. But I like to think, you know, there's something more at work here. Interesting idea, something that you know, you could think about when you have time on your hands. So it takes us to our next song now. If I could read it. Find the spirit, find the stillness.
Silence, oh, the silence, let
So we give thanks for the opportunity of looking at our own lives and how time passes. May this bring us a curiosity to ponder our own circumstances and to carry us to a new awareness of ourselves, so that we can find peace within our own hearts and within our own outer community. We go now and recognize that we are whole just as we are, and what we carry from our own lives, our choices, we can learn from, knowing that we always have the choice to be who we really want to be. If somebody could just blow out the chalice for me, please. Thank you.